Hi everyone. So we're just doing a Q&A session, and yeah. So if you guys have any other questions, or if you just want to come here and say hi, feel free to do so. I had a bit of a free time, so I just wanted to do a quick live, and yeah, it's been a while since I did a live in this page. I know I did a few when I was kind of having my break in the other account. So it's been a while, so I just wanted to come here and say hi to you guys. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions, or if you just want to clarify, some things regards to your manifestation, feel free to do so. I actually wanted to talk about a few things while the questions are coming in, because I feel like this video will be on YouTube anyway, so I might as well just talk about a few things as well. Um, the power of words is something that I really wanted to talk about today, because the power of words is underestimated by many folks in the community, which is ironic because we tend to prioritize affirmation so much these days. There was a funny story. Actually, it's not funny, it's quite tragic actually. This was during the pandemic time, and I was still in the military. And I remember there were a few things that were going on with my relatives back in India, and I was kind of frustrated slash I was feeling helpless, and I was really in this situation where I couldn't do anything about a particular situation. And my superior told me that, hey, do you know, back in India, X number of people had passed away from COVID. And mind you, this is at the height of the pandemic, numbers are always coming in and things like that. And I went on to tell my superior, yet not one of them is my relative, ma'am. Can you believe it? Something along those lines. I was really frustrated. It just came out. I just blurted it out. And, they took it in a very funny way, right? They just laughed, and that was that. End of story. Fast forward maybe 6 months down the line. I kid you not. I had a relative uh, pass away from COVID, and that was the only relative that had actually passed away from that. So it was just a moment of, oh shoot, I need to watch my words, because I didn't realize that my words had that level of power. And I often see that even in other cases as well, where some people might just say a few things about themselves in a very joking way or sarcastic way, in a way that kind of puts them down basically. Hello, hi, how are you doing? So I think we really need to watch our words, and even if you are sarcastic about something, even if you are joking about a few things, I want you guys to make it a positive thing, to make it something that is empowering, so that you are not using that to your detriment, right? Every word, is leading you towards your desires, whether or not you recognize it. So even if you are sarcastic about something, even if you are joking about something, make it positive. Never make it something derogatory, and definitely watch your words. And even when you are frustrated or something, just be mindful of what you're saying, because what I had said, this was pre-Neville, and I didn't really know the power of my words back then, or the weight it carried, I should say. But really, if you watch the power of your words, you will recognize how powerful it is. And yeah, again, which is ironic because the community these days places a heavy emphasis on affirmations, and I'll talk about that really quick. Let me just look at any questions. Okay, so there's a question here from Wendell. Okay, when you finally manifest your SP, do you stop doing routines? So that's a very good question, right? That's, I guess, the question that many people have. And for me, the way I see it is, by that time, that mindset should have been cemented in your mind to the point where you wouldn't need routines. It should have been ingrained in your system by then, so that it wouldn't feel like a routine, if that makes sense. If you have manifested your SP, and you are in that mindset, that should be your default, that should be your go-to mindset by the time you arrive there. That it shouldn't even feel like a routine, so to speak. If I am manifesting money, and I am thinking and feeling like a wealthy person, I wouldn't just switch it off once I get the money. like it would have been cemented in my mind. It would be a default thought process. So that's how I view this. So like, rather you have to ask yourself, it's not about whether or not you are stopping your routines, it's more of what should I do to sustain it and make it my default, so that by the time I do get my desires, it feels natural for me. So that's how I would tackle that. Hi guys, thank you for joining. Okay, there are a few questions. Let me just wave to everyone. Okay, life of Jules, struggling to believe in LOA. I mean, like, I understand. I, empathize. This is not something that is easily believable at times, right? And I'll be the first one to say it, because when you are in a position where you are saying like, hey, do something, and then you will get your desires, like, it's not something that everyone can actually like fully comprehend. It's not something that everyone can fully fathom, especially when their desires seem impossible, especially when the circumstances just seems to be quote unquote too real, when it's like staring at your face all the time. And for that, I would say, just start imagining. Just start imagining something, not as to manifest, but rather to make you feel good. Like, that's how I started. Like, even before I knew about law of attraction, even before I knew about any of this conscious creation stuff, I would just imagine things, because it made me feel happy, kind of like being in my own la la land, so to speak, right? That's how I would tackle that. And what ended up happening was it built up my faith, because I had gotten exactly what I wanted. There was this one point in time where I wanted a close knit group of friends. I was 15 and I wanted a close group of friends, and I kept imagining that. For some reason, it was always that vision that I went back to. 6 months later, when I went from like secondary school to junior college, so from A levels to O levels, if you're in the UK, that happened for me. And so I believe that wholeheartedly right now. So you're saying been affirming SP, and it feels like he's getting more distant and further away in a sense. I understand, that happens. And I think the main thing is that you shouldn't be focused on the 3D, because what you see isn't always factual, right? Like, what you are seeing in front of you is so deceiving. Your eyes can really deceive you, and you have to really watch, like, how what your thoughts are, like, really where your focus is at, if that makes sense. Because oftentimes, like, we might think like, oh, that person is doing great, or that person is moving away, but you don't know what's going on in their head. That's just the fact of the matter. And so if I were you, I wouldn't really focus too much on what is going on in the 3D. This is why you have to really hone in your imagination, because if my imagination feels so real and it feels so good, then I wouldn't be bothered with what's going on in the 3D, because one, I'm feeling it so real, so I'm getting my reassurance from there itself. But also, I know that it's inevitable, like, because I have seen it like so real in my head. I know that my end goals are nothing but an inevitability, that it doesn't bother me anymore. What's going on in the 3D does not bother me anymore. And that's how I would tackle this, really. How can I make parents agree with my decisions and manifest getting scholarship, which I'm feeling chances are less for me? Isel Rizam. Okay, I want you to go and read my post on brown parents, Isel, because I feel like that would be relevant for you. And for the manifesting scholarship, funny, because I kind of manifested school aid as well not too long ago. If you are in my other account, you will know, and I will make a post about this soon as well. The idea is that really just assume that it's already yours at the end of it. Like, don't worry about the technicalities of it. Don't bother with like the regulations and everything. one thing that you will learn, especially if you're in the corporate side of things or in any sort of job really, is that people will bend the rules for you if they want you somewhere. And like, not everything is as solid as it seems, not every rule is as solid as it seems. So don't worry too much about the technicalities of it. Like, I wouldn't be worried too much about that. Rather, my concern would be, okay, how do I make myself feel the desire is real? At the end of the day, in a nutshell, that's what this is all about for me. How can I make myself feel like it's already mine? Like, come at it from a perspective of a spoiled brat. Like, of course it's mine, why wouldn't it be? Right? Like, of course I'm getting the scholarship, why wouldn't I? Why shouldn't I? And if you come at it from like that entitled sort of perspective, I feel that it's going to be a lot easier for you. And yeah, you will get it in no time really. So that's what I would focus on if I were you. I have fears of being cheated or third parties so much. I'm scared that what if I'll manifest it when I'll manifest SP. I don't these things. I got frustrated today because of stress and enough thoughts a lot. Honestly, I think like, that's a fear that you have. Like, that's something that many folks do have. Frankly, the thing that's very important to note there is, why do you have those fears, right? Like, that's more of a self-concept thing, if you really think about it. So if I were you, I would really look into, okay, how can I change those thoughts for the better? In the sense, like, okay, how can I feel more confident? Why do I think that the love of my life, the partner who be in a relationship with me or chose to marry me, would do that to me, right? Especially if they know how lucky they are to have me in their life, right? Like, why would they do that to me? That doesn't make sense. And really, like, coming at it from the perspective of, like, they're lucky to have me, so logically speaking, it doesn't make sense for them to even do something like that. Like, they feel so attracted to me, they feel so in love with me, that it's not even in their system, it's not even logical for them in any way for them to cheat on me, or for them to even consider somebody else, because they are so much in love with me. And that's really the frame of reference that I would take here if I were you. I want MSD to play next season also. What to do? Tell me, please. MSD, I think you're talking about Dhoni, I believe, right? Sorry, I'm not too well versed with cricket. Even though I took a picture with him once, which is funny. Okay, so just see him playing. Just see him playing. Like, just visualize that. I have done that for celebrities too. Like, for example, there was this one actor. I think I shared it in my Secret of Wisdom too, as well. There was this one actor called Nathan Fillion. I wanted him to play this role in the upcoming movie, as a Green Lantern, right? Like in the Justice League movies, because he's perfect for that role. And I was like, oh my god, I wish he was gonna play that. Like, wouldn't it be great if he did? And I kid you not, I think 2 days later they announced the casting, and he was the Green Lantern. And I was like, that's how powerful our mind is. There was this one movie that was cancelled, Star Trek 4, from the J.J. Abrams universe. And again, I was like, I really wanted to see that movie. And funny enough, they actually restarted the project at one point. So I would say, just visualize your cricket player just playing in the season, and maybe you are having a conversation with your friends where you guys are like just cheering for him, etc. And I think, yeah, it should go well from there. So that's how I would do it if I were you. Isabel asks, I'm not able to feel end of my desires. Should I repeat affirmation in scripts again and again, even I don't believe? Honestly, it's not about repeating scripts. Like, for me, what I would really be focused on is imagination. Like, really seeing it in your mind, to comprehend the idea that, like, hey, this is already mine. That's what I'd be focused on if I were you. Again, this community has a obsession with affirmations and everything, And I get that, right? Like, they have like all this like 10K challenges and all that kind of type of stuff. But really, I think imagination should always take precedence over all of these things, because if you can imagine, if you can see it in your mind, the mind is unable to differentiate between the 3D and what's imagination, what's in your mind. So it's more inclined to believing that. Whereas with affirmations, it's not that it doesn't work, it's just that it takes a lot more energy from you, especially in the beginning, especially when you are emotionally sort of turbulent. It just takes a lot more from you to believe that affirmation, for that affirmation to even cement into your subconscious mind. It takes a lot of repetitions. And that's another issue, is that folks underestimate the number of repetition it takes when you are emotionally turbulent. You know, like I used to repeat affirmations at one point, like throughout the day, till my throat got so dry. And even till now, some of those affirmations are still in my head because I used to repeat them so many times. So again, like, people do underestimate the amount of affirmations that you need to say, especially when you're emotionally turbulent. But to me, it's a very inefficient way. I wouldn't do that right now. I wouldn't do that even if I want to. Even if I could, I wouldn't do that because it's so exhaustive. That's not what manifestation should be. Manifestation should be easy. And so I wouldn't really bother about affirmations or scripting. As I said in one of my posts, affirmations are more like declarations, and it's easier for you to believe those affirmations if you are in the end state. And you go into the end state by imagining the end, like by being in the end, end scenes, basically, like putting yourself in that, like imagining yourself being in that state where you're already experiencing your desires. Like maybe you are in the park with your SP, maybe you guys are already married and you guys are, like going to a family gathering or something, like whatever, floats your boat there. So that's what I would be doing if I were you here. For SP, I can listen your affirmation tape too. Yeah, I mean, I put it out there, to help you guys as well. I personally have my own custom affirmation tape, and I do offer that as a service as well. I do offer custom affirmation tapes for folks who do want to use that. I did see a lot of growth, especially when I used it for me, because it's always in the background playing, and what ended up happening is that whenever I used to hear my affirmation tapes, I noticed a lot of movement. I did it as an experiment initially to kind of figure out, okay, what happens when I use affirmation tapes, and it really does work for me. It really did work wonders for me. And I would just listen to it throughout the day, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm doing dishes or whether I am listening to a podcast. I would just like lower the affirmation tape and I will play it in the background so that it's like always playing. It's always in my head. So yeah, that's something that you can listen to. I do have a playlist of marriage ones, self-concept. I even have a forgiveness one as well that I recently posted. So yes, you can listen to those. Yes, I'm talking about Taladoni only. He might announce retirement this year, but I want him to play next year. How to manifest money, sir? Honestly, imagine yourself to be wealthy. Like, that's the biggest thing that I have found to be useful for me, is to just imagine yourself to be wealthy. Because if you are wealthy, like imagining yourself to be rich, like whatever form that takes, right? Like, my definition of being rich may not be your definition of being rich, but just imagining that, or imagining, visualizing, like you opening your bank account and like seeing like $300,000 there, just sitting there, and just normalizing that, just desensitizing yourself to those numbers. One experiment that I like to do with my clients, I always ask them this question is, if I were to tell you, like, hey, your desires can be here tomorrow, or you're going to get $1 million tomorrow, would you be ready to have it mentally? And if your answer is yes, great. If your answer is no, then you have to start normalizing that in your mind. Like, to me, in my mind, $1 million is nothing. $3 million is nothing. 100 million is nothing. Really. Like when, for example, there was this case with Donald Trump recently, where he had to pay like 400 million and then they kind of reduced it to 175 million. And my mind went, oh, that's not too bad. Like, yeah, 175 million, totally doable, right? Like, that was normal amount for me, right? And I'm saying that because, like, not many people would see it as a normal amount, even if they don't have it. That's the most important thing, right? So you have to really desensitize yourself to that amount of money so that you can be comfortable with it. And also just envision a wealthy lifestyle. What kind of a life would you have? Where would you be? What kind of house would you have? And again, this is unique to every person. So I would just like envision that, and I would also go a step further and say that revise your entire life up to this point as though you were always wealthy. So since you were born till now, you were always wealthy, and that way when you're imagining like maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, it's not going to feel unnatural for you because you've always been wealthy. So why wouldn't this be your norm? And that's what I would do if I were you here. I have one more question. I want my SP not to do some type of work. I don't want him to do it. How can I manifest it? Just imagine him doing the things that you want. Simple as that. Like, this is a very straightforward thing. Like, people always think that others have free will and stuff like that. In your reality, they don't. So yeah. Is it correct to put focus on relationship feelings, like how to feel being in relationship, rather than on how person should look like? I would say I wouldn't say that like either one is more important than the other. uh, People can say a lot of things. Like, I'm going to be blunt here, right? Like, people can say, oh, appearance don't matter, personality does, and everything. But let's be honest, like, you're going to wake up to that face for like the next like 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, for the rest of your life, right? So yeah, looks are important. I'm not going to sit here and say otherwise, to be very blunt. So what I would say is that sure, include those traits as well, include physical traits that you are attracted to, but at the same time place the emphasis on like how this person makes you feel. When I do a list, I always encourage clients to do both, to include both, because both matters. It's not like either one matters more so than the other. Like, you don't want to have a good looking person being mean to you, but you also don't want to have a person that you're not physically attracted to be extremely kind to you. Like, you don't have to have like either this or that. You can have both, and it's not wrong to have both, and your desires are valid, and it's not too good to be true either. That's another thing I want to stress, is that it's not too good to be true either. So yeah, that's what I would be focusing on, both of them. It's not a matter of is it correct or not, it's more of you can have both, and so why not? Again, it's your reality, the possibilities are endless, so why not is the way I would deal with it. I'm not good at imagine much until song I'm listening with it. I can do that time easily. So I guess what you're trying to say is that you're not good at imagining things, but you can do it when you are listening to songs. Then listen to songs, then do it. Like, I do believe that people can imagine. To be very honest, it's not something that some people can do, some people can't. For some it's a lot easier, I will admit it, but it's an innate ability that all of us have. And for me, the way I would see it is that folks just need to unlock it, like in the sense, like they just need to practice it just a little bit and they will get it. Oftentimes they get paralyzed when it comes to imagining, because they focus too much on the current set of circumstances, and that really just clouds their vision too much. They are thinking too much about the 3D and the circumstances, which really causes them to be paralyzed, in a nutshell. So if you can just suspend your belief, like what Neville would say, it'll be a lot easier in your journey for you. So let me just get a sip of water really quick. So, Life of Jules asked what to do when SP doesn't want commitment and just wants to mess around and talk to other girls. He texts me every day but takes forever to respond. But I don't want to cut contact, but I overthink. See, there's this thing, this is something that many of my clients sort of struggle with as well, and I kind of give them an ultimatum at some point. Really, is that in these types of situations, you need to value yourself. And by valuing yourself, I mean like having boundaries. Like if some person, be it anyone, not just your love interest, but if any person is, not giving you the proper respect in a relationship, you need to have the onus is on you to put up a boundary and say, hey, unless you meet my standards, like I'm not going to engage with you. I don't care who you are, I'm not going to engage with you. And that's difficult for a lot of people to do, and I empathize with that. But unless you do that, you're not going to go far, in the sense that you're always going to be tolerant of their unfavorable behavior. And so what I am saying is, yes, kind of distance yourself, because what it does is that space that you have gives you the time to recreate them for the better, because this isn't a version that you want to engage with. And this is a big issue with the community, where they are constantly going for the instant gratifications, the short-term things that kind of makes them feel good for the moment, and then they kind of go back into that vicious cycle. And you have to make a decision here. If he's not responding or something, that's fine. Like, just cut contact in the 3D, and use your imagination, having conversations with the ideal version of him, which I'm sure you have a idea of what the ideal version should be, or what the ideal version is for you, and just engage with that version, having a conversation with that version, and substitute that in the place of having conversations in the 3D. And as he confirms, he will come to you in a more loving manner, and then you accept him, and then you engage with him. That's how I would approach this if I were you. Like you said, do imagination or go for one technique, so it'll be enough, because I want my SP to come fast towards me, the desires to in time crunch. See, this is the thing, like so folks do kind of obsessed with that whole time crunch thing. I get it, but at the same time, like, are you doing everything that you can for it to come quick? And sometimes, the really honest answer is no. People are not doing that. Especially in the case of SP, like folks would, just focus on the middle, drag it unnecessarily. They would try to convince the SP why they should, be in a relationship with you, and it's like so unnecessary sometimes. And it's like, if you just focus on the idea that your desires are already done, that's all it takes, really. Like, people always think, oh, but it's not as simple as that, or something like that. And I honestly disagree at this point in time, because the more complex you make this stuff, like, the harder it will become. But I really firmly believe at this point in life, that manifestation does not have to be hard, especially if you know who you want and you have that clarity. You can simply say, okay, that person is my boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, and keep assuming that until it comes true. That's it. There's nobody else to convince. There's not even them. As long as you are convinced of the idea that they are already yours, that's all it really takes. And if you can do that, you'll be fine. So that's what I would be focused on here. If I'm going to be manifesting on a time crunch, I'd just go all in with that assumption, in a nutshell. I feel unstoppable when I'm hearing music, and especially dancing. That's a great thing, actually. So probably I think the big factor there is also the tracks that you're choosing to listen. So I think as long as you keep that track positive, I think it makes sense that you do feel that way. So keep it up. so funny because it's saying there are only 3 people here, but it's like I'm waving to so many people. I will be posting this on YouTube, by the way. So if you guys have, want to replay this down the line, I will be posting this on YouTube so that you guys can actually go and see this recording. And I am doing a giveaway that for those of you who didn't really see my stories or something. Like I am doing a giveaway for 1 month of DM coaching. All you have to do is just be a subscriber, and every comment that you leave gives you an additional entry. So at the end of it, when we reach 2,222 subscribers, I will actually take all of that entries and put it into a random generator, and I'll pick a winner for 1 month of DM coaching. So yeah. So all of you do have a way to enter the giveaway as well. So yeah, if you guys have any questions right now, you guys can send me. I think I'll be here for maybe 10 minutes or so before I leave. Can you type that question again, because there's a lot of things to scroll back, so if you can just type it out again, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm not sure which one you're talking about. So if you can retype that question out. Hi Aditya, how are you doing? I'm just doing a Q&A here, so if you have any questions that you want to ask publicly, yeah, feel free to do so. I think there was another question. This was not in the Q&A right now. There was this one question that I wanted to discuss. I'll be making a post about this soon as well. But this idea of narcissism and whether or not you can actually change a narcissist, and if you can, and more importantly, should you, right? That was kind of the gist of the question. Especially if everyone is you pushed out, can you change a narcissist, and should you do it? And if you don't want to, like, is it a bad thing or something? So there are many layers to this question, and I thought this was worth addressing in a live, because I think I'm going to be adding timestamps to it anyway so that you guys can track it down later. But can you change a narcissist? And the answer is yes, you can change anyone. Narcissism is a set of traits, and we are essentially putting a person in a unfavorable state, right, based on whatever that they did to us maybe. But really, so you can change them, like anything. You change your inner talks with them, you suspend your disbelief, based on what you see in the 3D, the same classic formula applies here. But where I think the question really comes in is, should you change them? And it's not a straightforward answer, in the sense like, if it's an SP, you might be inclined to say yes. But one thing that I have noticed is that, again, this varies from person to person, but folks tend to have strong patterns with some SPs, traumatic ones. And when that's the case, it's extremely difficult for them to change those beliefs. And so you have to ask yourself there then, like, it's more of a time thing. Like, are you going to be stuck here trying to conform this person? And it's certainly doable, but are you willing to put in that effort? Or do you just want to manifest somebody who is perfect for you, who is emotionally fulfilling for you, who you find attractive in every way possible, which is going to be far more easier than, say, like, having to conform your relationship with a narcissist or something. And again, it's a question of whether or not you want to do it. The choice is up to you, but you can certainly change them. Because I think, like, even with like toxic relatives, can you change them? Yes, you can. But do you want to? Or do you want to just put up your boundaries and keep your distance from those folks, especially like if they're not relevant to your day-to-day life? And that's where I would really like draw my, or make my choices, essentially, is if I think like, okay, this person is important or essential for my day-to-day life, then I would certainly put in the work to conform them. But if they are not so essential to me, if I think that this is just too much work, or this is just too much of emotional suffering, and I would be better off if I just go general and manifest a loving group of people instead, or a loving person instead, then I would do that rather. Because not all the time you want to sit there and try to conform someone, because quite frankly it can be very emotionally exhaustive, and manifestation is all about making your life easier, not more difficult. So that's what I would be doing if I were you. So okay, I think you typed out your question. How to handle seeking validation, stress, anxiety, doubts, fear, etc., all type of negative thoughts, because I feel ruining manifestations and about circumstances of SP sometimes. Again, the simple answer there is imagine, imagine, imagine. Always rely on your imagination for reassurance. You can even write those things down, your ideal life with SP, and read it every day. And as you are reading it, you will imagine it, you will visualize it in your mind. So the answer there is imagine. Seek the validation, reassurance from your inner world. And when you do that, you will stop doing that from the outer world. You'll stop seeking validation from the outer world. So it's a lot more simple than you might think, actually. Doesn't matter. I don't care if he doesn't know you or lives in another country. Circumstances don't matter. It really doesn't. Can you see it in your mind that you and him are together? Can you even fathom the possibility? And you can, because we are talking about it right now. The answer is yes. There exists a reality where you guys are already together, and all you have to do is simply align your thoughts with those circumstances, and he will come. You will be united with him. Things will shift in a way that he will be in a loving relationship with you. If there's no any other questions, I will wrap this up in about 10 minutes or so. You're welcome. So for those of you who are joining, I'm just doing a live right now, taking in questions. So if you guys have any other questions, just let me know. Like earlier, the time crunch question, really, if folks do want to manifest in a time crunch, like the more I think about it, like, because I'm rereading some of the questions right now, the more I think about it, really, it's a lot more simple than folks make it to be, in my opinion. Like, really, just simplify the process for yourselves. At the end of the day, it's about assuming. Can I get myself to believe that my desires are already mine, regardless of what I see in the 3D? And as Neville says, the more your belief is, like the stronger your belief is, the faster it sort of comes into your reality. So that's what I'd be focused on if I were you. Imagining whole listening songs is also effective if songs are good to this help same in manifesting. Imagining while listening songs. Yes, imagining whilst you're listening to songs. Of course, the playlist has to be a good one. You can't just have a playlist that is unfavorable or negative. And I've worked hard to change my playlist to ensure that only good songs are there, only songs that invokes positive emotions, be it classical music or be it vintage songs or be it songs of any kind, really. But as long as it implies the future that I want, even the media that you consume, you have to um, ensure that it's favorable, because otherwise what ends up happening is that you are putting in things that, it's like eating junk food, right? Like, you're clouding your mind with things that is unfavorable, and that's exactly what you're going to also get in your reality. And so that's why I always tell people, like, watch the content that you consume on a daily basis. And I actively discourage people from, like, binge watching. Like, I don't binge any TV shows anymore. Even if I can, even if I have the time, I really don't do that anymore, because it takes on a certain mindset. I remember when I used to binge Narcos, like all 4 seasons or something, and I remember coming out and feeling so angry, so the rage, that just wanting to punch someone in the face or something like that, right? That was kind of the mood. And I'm like, why on earth do I feel this way? And I'm like, of course, I've been binging a show that was so violent, and it was an interesting story, I'm not going to lie, but the fact that I binged it episode after episode, and these episodes were, like, I think, like 45 minutes to an hour long, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And so that's why I sort of actively discourage folks. And also, overall, like, look at the content you're consuming, look at sort of like the suggestion list that appears on your YouTube, and see, like, hey, is any of these videos that are popping up on my feed right now in alignment to the life that I want? And if the answer is no, then actively do things to shift your content, so that you are putting in good things into your mind, because every bit counts. Every show that you watch, every song that you listen to, it all adds up. Everything is cumulative. You're not going to just switch off your mind when you're not affirming, or when you're not visualizing deliberately. Manifestation is a 24/7 thing. So if I were you, I would really make it a point to watch what I consume as a whole. A good night. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for the support as always. I really appreciate you guys. Honestly, the community on YouTube is growing, and it's always getting a positive reception on Instagram as well. So yeah, thank you so much. So for those who are joining now, if you guys have any other questions, you guys can just send me. You guys can send me anonymously as well. So in case you don't want it to be public or whatsoever, feel free to send it to me anonymously, and yeah, it'll be there. I intend to do more of these lives as I go by, but yeah, it's really a matter of if I'm free. So that's why I didn't announce it, because this was such an impromptu thing. I was like, okay, let's just hop on Insta and do a live. And I think, as you guys can probably notice, like my throat is still kind of a little uh, just kind of, it's kind of low in the sense that because I had like a sore throat, I was kind of having a fever not too long ago, so I'm still kind of recovering. My throat is still healing, so in case my voice sounds a little different, that's why. Hi, how are you doing? I'm just seeing the message right now. And if you guys have any questions at any point, and if you just want to interact with a group of people, my Facebook group is always available for you guys to interact with the community. The moderators there were picked by me. They were also community members like you guys. So if I were you, like, and if I want a community of like-minded folks, a small, close-knit community, my Facebook group, the link is in my website. Um, yeah, you guys can automatically just join there. I think all you need is like agree to the rules, send in your email for verification, and that's about it. And yeah, you guys will be in. All of my links to my socials can be found in the bio. So if you click my website and you go to the homepage, if you scroll down, you can see like where my links are to other socials. I'm mostly active on YouTube, Instagram, and Threads, so that's the best way to reach out. I used to be active on Twitter, but Threads kind of defeated the purpose for me, so I didn't want to be on all platforms. That was not my objective. So Threads has been great. Like, it's pretty much Twitter, but for with Instagram integration, I should say. So yeah. Any other questions? I'm scrolling in. What should we do of emotions? They come out anytime. How you handle it? Just if okay, let's say you're crying, for example, if you're feeling sad, allow yourself to feel it with the intention of releasing it. That's the main thing. You When you're experiencing emotions, it's fine. It's completely all right to do so. And emotions can be separate from thoughts. So what I mean is, like, you could be crying, but you could be crying knowing that, one, things will be better down the line, and two, that you're crying just to release the emotions from your body. So what I would suggest is that feel it with the intention of releasing it. That's what matters the most, your intention. If you are feeling your emotions and you're letting them dictate your thoughts, that's where the problem really sort of grows. So I would say keep your emotions and thoughts separate, and for that you really need mental awareness. So you need to be like, okay, hey, I'm crying right now, and that's okay, but I'm doing so to release it out of my system, because suppression leads to some sort of disease. So I am releasing it out of my system, and it's a good thing. I'm going to give myself the time to release this emotion, and once it's done, I'm going to get a mental reset. I'm going to maybe sleep or take a shower or go for a walk, and then I'm going to mentally reset myself and start my day anew the following day or something. And then maybe today I'm going to just put on my favorite movie or something. I'm just going to watch it, right? So it's about really being very aware of what's going on in your mind, and really tackling it that way. So feeling it and releasing it with the intention of releasing it is the key there. So Jagriti, so hello, I'm manifesting constant communication from SP and I want him to initiate the conversation. So I'm affirming for self-concept and for this as well, but sometimes after affirming for 1 to 2 days I feel the need to message him or talk to him. That means that you are doing this the wrong way, because like what I would do in this case is more of go beyond that, go beyond your desires, like think bigger, think about maybe a relationship, like assume that you're already in a relationship with this person, or that you always get what you want, and when you are in that state people get naturally attracted to you. So the key there is to make your desires, the current desires, a byproduct of something else. Like how they would always say with business, money is the byproduct of doing something that you like, or doing something that is larger than you. So money becomes a byproduct. Like you don't start a business to become rich, so to speak. You do something to make a difference in the world, and money is a byproduct. Similarly, in this case, if I were you, the way I tackle this is I would think bigger. I would take a step back and think big. I don't just want to manifest a text from my SP. Like that's small. That's the way amateurs play this game, so to speak, right? I would go for a relationship. In my mind, I tell myself I'm already in a loving, committed relationship. I am successful in all areas of my life, and that's the frame of reference that I would take. And I would sort of feel that real, and a byproduct of that would be SP just coming in and texting me and showing me all the affection and things. So that's what I would do in that case. Let me know if that makes sense. I do waver a lot. I can't able to stop it. Okay, so I would honestly say that takes a lot of self-discipline. It's more of a self-discipline thing. I don't know how else to put it. To redirect your mind, to show, like to bring the attention back to favorable things only. That's more of a self-discipline thing. And if I can do that, unfavorable stuff will sort of fade away. But in order for that, like in the initial stages, you have to have the discipline to bring your mind to the favorable things again and again and again. So that's what you need to do here. You need to be able to bring your mind to the favorable things again and again and again and again and again. And that takes self-discipline, especially in the beginning, because you're trying to break a programming. So it's not the most easiest of things, but as time goes by, it becomes easier. And that's what I tell my friends as well. So there's no any questions. I will end the live in about 5 minutes. You guys can find a replay of this on YouTube as well. So I will try to attach timestamps as soon as possible so that you guys can go and get to the things that you want. But thank you for joining. I'm not sure what time it is from wherever you guys are from. So yeah, thank you for joining, and I really appreciate all of your support this community has been giving me. Yeah, It's good to be back on Instagram as well. A lot of you have been sending me loving messages, like about me being back and everything. And so yeah, thank you so much for all the love and support. Really. And don't forget to join the giveaway on YouTube. All you have to do again is be a subscriber and leave comments for additional entries. Only comments from 15th of November in the giveaway. So the way it works is that I will take in all of the comments as entries from 15th of November. If you're a subscriber, and you also have to make your subscription public, otherwise YouTube does not allow me to see who has been subscribed to me. And so that's another thing I wanted to just mention real quick. So make your subscription public so that I'm aware that hey, this person is actually subscribed to me. And then at the end of it, when we reach 2,222 subscribers, I'll be putting everything in a random generator and I'll be picking a winner. And that's another thing, by the way. Some of you have been telling me like, why are you putting it in a random generator? It's your channel, you should pick. That's the sort of comment I've been getting from people with regards to my most recent giveaway that I did on Insta. The thing is that that's the most like unbiased way of doing it, honestly. Otherwise, it's one of those things that I couldn't pick someone. Like if my friend is joining the giveaway, I would be more biased, or I would be more inclined to pick them, over somebody else, for example, right? Like, but this ensures that I am not biased or whatsoever, because it's coming from a random generator. So yeah. Okay, I'll be just answering these last two questions before I wrap this up, because I have to go as well. Should I take practical steps for scholarship? I told before. It depends on what type of practical steps. Like, I mean, like if you have to, like, let's say apply for it, then yes, obviously you have to. If you have to, like give in the details or whatsoever, then yes, you should go and do those practical steps. But the way I would see this, it's more of a natural bridge of events. That's the way I would tackle it. But yes, do whatever that you have to in the 3D. Like if there's a form to be filled in, of course I'm gonna do that, right? Like if I have to go somewhere physically to get to another country, of course I have to do that. Like I'm not just gonna sit here and think that I'm gonna teleport somewhere, right? So yeah. Hi guys, how are you doing? I'm actually going to be wrapping this up really soon, so if you guys have any other questions, do let me know. So we are in a relationship, but he was upset with me about something and things just doesn't get better. We were in contact earlier, even if it's just 1 to 2 texts per day, but I'm done with breadcrumbs now. Yeah, so you have to decide, like, okay, you guys are in a loving, committed relationship, change your inner conversations, and don't be just on the lookout for texts. Like, you have a life, and focus on other things too. And when you do that, he'll come. He'll come. So that's what I would be doing. Like, see your love life as one aspect of your life, because it's just that, it's one of many aspects. And so if I were you, that's what I would see it as. Like, I wouldn't just see it as like my entire life, so to speak. So yeah, like I have to go for, is it IELTS, is it what it is, and some IT course should I do, because they might help in plus point the scholarship. I mean, yeah, like if you think that those will increase your chances, go for it. But again, you don't have to do it to get to that. Like if you assume that it's already yours, if you feel like, like for example, the way I would do it is, if I assume that it's already mine and I'm feeling a strong inclination to doing these exams that you mentioned, then I will go, because it feels natural for me to do it. I feel a strong urge to do it, then I will just go and do it. But if I feel a lot of resistance, then I would just kind of take a step back and just focus on just assuming. So it's really a case by case basis here. Like, trust your instincts there. And I think, like, if it's coming up in your radar, just assume that it's already done, and this is nothing but a bridge of incidents. I would just see it as bridge of incidents rather than inspired action, because somewhere if you see it as inspired action, the thing is that you're hoping that by doing this you're going to get something else. The way I would see it is, it's already mine, and I'm just doing things in between. Like those exams that you mentioned, those will increase your skill sets, your language proficiency anyway, so it's a win-win, so to speak. Okay, how to not get attached to SP? Feeling attached to SP, and I feel like I can't live without him and his message and call help. Okay, so the thing is that you have to realize and recognize that you are the main character here. They're nothing but a bonus, and no one person can make you feel a certain way unless you allow them to do so, unless you give them the permission to do so. And so if I were you, I would really focus on making yourself the main character and why this person is so lucky to have you, and bring them down from the pedestal. And if you recognize that, it'll be a lot easier for you to just kind of drop them and really value your company above everyone else's, and it'll make your life so much more easier. Yeah, so that's what I'd be doing here if I were you. In India, government exam cutoffs are increasing so much for general category. I'm preparing for it, but time is taking a lot, and the increases cutoff. Please tell me some ways. Focus on, okay, what is your primary objective? Like, break it down. Like, what is it that I actually want here? And based on that, make a decision. Like, that's what I would be doing. Like, make it simple for yourself. It does not have to be hard or something, right? Like, it can be so much more easier if you allow it to be. So what I would say is, like, okay, what is it that I actually want? What is it that my objective is? Like, okay, by writing this exam, like, am I aiming for another job, or go straight to that goal? And that way what ends up happening is that you're not going to be worried too much about the cutoffs and all that stuff, because there might be another easier way for you to reach that goal that you may not be aware of right now. So that's what I'd be focused on, if that makes sense. And that way you're not stressing yourself about the cutoffs and everything. So yeah. I'm getting to every question. Just give me a while. Thank you. Because I have to scroll up with every question as well. So yeah. How to change my mindset? I have in my head that if I share my thing with anyone that's in process, then it won't happen, or I'll get a favorable result. How to change it? Also, is it a fear? It's a fear. It's a limiting belief. Yes, but honestly, the way I would say is that, like, resolve it is by really grasping the fact that I am the operant power. I am the creator of my reality. And if I'm the creator, then I set the rules here. I set the terms in which, based on how this game is being played, essentially, right? So that's what I'd be focused on. And if I can really, like, own that, like, everything else will sort of just fall into place. Yeah. I'm so scared about exams as the competition also increases. I wouldn't mind about that. Like, everyone's path is unique. So I wouldn't even bother about competition or something. Like, like, I wouldn't care. I really wouldn't care. Like, if I want something, it's already mine. End of story, that's it. Like, I'm not going to overthink this. Because if I do, I'm at a loss. So that's the way I approach things. It makes it easier for me. I don't think. If I want something, I just tell myself it's already mine. Everybody's happy. Everyone wins. Great. That's it. Like, I don't try to complicate this unnecessarily. Because the moment I do is when things goes difficult for me. So, yeah, I really don't try to complicate this, if you will. because like that's unnecessary pressure for me, you know. um, I'm experiencing it there. I just can't handle it as I'm in of a job ASAP. Okay, so there's a private question here. Are affirmations and other techniques really as good as visualization? Asking because I can't visualize. um, Probably. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce that word, forgive me. So it's, I believe it's a condition of sorts. You can, like, I mean, any technique can be helpful. Okay, so the golden sort of the general rule of thumb that I have is this able to help me believe in my assumptions more? That's sort of the way I would deal with it, right? Like, can I believe my desires, that my desires are already mine, um, based on the technique that I use? And if the answer is yes, then it's effective for you. If the answer is no, then it's not effective for you. It's really that simple, in a nutshell. Because otherwise, if I were to say anything else, I'm going to be complicating that question. So yeah. Yeah, sure. I will post a few things about career because I don't really post much about that stuff, in general, because I feel like it's pretty straightforward, to be very honest. I don't think there's much, career wise, because career is very, simple, like in the sense like of manifesting it. But if you're talking about choosing, then that's something that's worth talking about, in my opinion, because, um, like I think like people just tend to paralyze themselves with like a specific career and things like that. So that's definitely worth sharing. So yeah, but I'll be talking more about that stuff for sure. How to manifest and focus on multiple desires? Like, just assume that it's already yours. Like, whatever it is that you want. Like, it's more about the feeling there that everything is already yours. Getting into that feeling, honing that in. So, like, if you were to look at that story that Neville spoke about, the "Isn't It Wonderful" technique, where this lady wanted a job and a few other things, a car, and how she just like went into that feeling of "Isn't it wonderful," and she got everything that she wanted. So that's the way I would do that. You're welcome. Okay, the questions are really flooding in right now. Yeah, because content, with content, what ends up happening is that like you really have to prioritize like which content you are going to post. um, like what some people like, some others may not like, and I try to cover posts that are more relevant to a broad audience, um, because that way I get to send the message out. Like, of course, there's always like one-on-one coaching that you can always take to sort whatever sort of queries that you might have. But other than that, like I try my best to cover topics that are most relevant for like the broad majority. And if you have a specific question, you can always leave it in the comments, of course, and I will get back to it. Yeah. So that's the way I kind of deal with it, because at times, like, these pieces of content, it takes a while to create it. Like, people may not realize it because you're posting every day, but to sit there and like, write this stuff, it takes a while. And so that's why it's kind of more of a juggling act. You kind of have to prioritize, okay, which ones are you going to talk about more. And yeah, I do miss out a few for sure, but for the most part I do get to most of the important and pressing issues, if you will. How to manifest and focus on multiple desires at the same time? Like, just envision and encompass a scene that has all of them, or again get into that feeling that okay, I have all the things that I want, and go and check out that "Isn't It Wonderful" technique, because that kind of sums it up really well. Where the lady, again, like, she did it so well because like she focused on that feeling that okay, I have all the things that I want, now how do I feel? It's a thought process that you embody, and it just comes easy for you. Like, if I were to tell you right now, you have everything that you want, relax, like, how do you feel? So that's kind of like how you take that. If some days I feel the urge to text him first, this can be because of my own story. and my fear that I have to text him first always. So, and I end up doing that. Then you have to change your thought process. That means your thoughts haven't confirmed yet, simply put. So the onus is on you to do the due diligence to change that, and that's the work. So, which one are you referring to? Is my comment not visible? Okay, the name is Kush. What's the difference between being delusional and living in the end? By the way, I love your page. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Um, okay, so that's a good question. Uh, Sometimes the difference is a bit um, vague. I would be the first one to admit it. The way I see it is being delusional ignores like the 3D in a way that is not, in a way that's almost like toxic, I would say. So what I mean by this is that when you are delusional, you are saying things, but you're not fully believing them, if that makes sense. Um, you're just saying it in the hopes that it might come true, but you're deep down not believing it, but you're just saying it to kind of gaslight yourself, essentially. That's being delusional. Whereas if you are really living in the end, the source of it is faith. That's what the source is. The source of living in the end is faith. And when you have faith that your desires are already done, that is a level of confidence, that the confidence that you get from that is just unbeatable. Like, so if you really want to really think about the difference, it's really the emotions, the faith that you have. That would be the difference, I would say. Yeah. How long does one need to persist? Like persisting and see change, 3D change. Again, something happens to like on and off, yet persisting. How to eliminate it thing to something permanent? Honestly, how long should you persist? Until it comes true. Like that's the way I see it. Until you believe otherwise. And if I can persist until I'm convinced that my desires are already true, then that's how long I need to persist, and that time varies. If I were to wake you up, like I said in my post, like if I were to wake you up and ask you who's your SP, and if you can tell me that's my boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, then that means you are living in the end. That means you have persisted well. And so really like that's what the key there is can I believe that my desires are already done? Can I get myself to believe in to that level? And if I can do that, then yeah, I'm good. Like I'm in a good place, basically. Is revision better than attracting an apology from your SPX? Absolutely, 100%. Because the thing about apology is that you are essentially, in a nutshell, sort of reinforcing what happened, and that is never helpful, because somewhere you are still saying like, hey, this person did this to me, and it's kind of just stoking the fire unnecessarily, in my opinion. So I would say that it's in your best interest to just get past that stuff ASAP. I would revise. Revision always takes precedence, because if you can align yourself with the reality where you guys were always good, where you guys have always been loving and kind to each other, and that is something that I will choose over manifesting something to stoke my ego, essentially. Because what is that apology going to do if I'm not in a loving, committed relationship with my SP? Right? They can apologize, but is that truly what you want? Or do you want a loving, committed relationship? So it's more of prioritizing that, basically. What is persisting in real life like? How to stick to it? Persisting is more about really just saying like, hey, my inner world is true, and it will come true. It will manifest itself in the 3D, no matter what I'm seeing right now. And it's already true because I've seen it in my mind, and I'm going to give importance to that. I'm only going to validate that. I'm not going to validate the 3D. It's about rejecting what's in front of you and believing what's within you, in a nutshell. How to stay positive when there are negative events? By knowing that the negative events are temporary, by knowing that the end is done. And if the end is done, does that event matter as much? Like, if I know that I am a millionaire, would I be worried about a loss that I have made today? No. Why? Because I know that at the end of it all, I'm a millionaire. So, yeah. Without falling in denial, see it as a bridge of events. See it as, okay, it's a learning experience. It's only making me better. See it as, okay, this only makes me more resilient to failure. And I would just believe that, okay, it's all going to end well. And if it's not well, it's not the end. That's the way I'd see it. Insecurities that sometimes purge. Like, can you specify, because that's kind of vague for me. And I'm just going to wrap this up after that because, yeah, my throat is kind of giving up right now. So if you can just elaborate on your question, because that's kind of vague for me to answer. Could you specify, like, what exactly is the insecurity? What is exactly, like, the purge that you're talking about? Because there's a number of ways that I can interpret it, and I really want to ensure that I'm answering your question correctly. I'm not too sure about, like, generally I'm saying, like, I'm not too sure about, like, how you are. Maybe you can put it down in the comments later because, yeah, because there's a number of ways I can interpret that question. And so, yeah, like, I'm not too sure, like, what exactly you're asking there.